Welcome to Author Nation Interviews, where nonfiction authors come to grow, get inspired, and amplify their voices. Today, we're diving into something every author faces, that frustrating moment when your ideas feel powerful in your head, but nothing's coming out. It seems to make any sense. It's really hard to translate that sometimes. So we're going to explore how to move past that block, bringing clarity to your message and fully stepping into your authority as a writer and as a thought leader. I'm Melody Ann, your host, and this is Author Nation Interviews, and I'm here to help you write with confidence, share your expertise, and make an impact with your book, because that's what you want. You want to have an impact with your book. So whether you're tuning in with your morning coffee or maybe just winding down after a mad writing session, get cozy, because this conversation could change how you show up on the page and beyond. My guest, Dora. I'm trying to put Dr. and Laura into one word. Dr. Laura Sicola is a leadership, communication, and influence expert, speaker, and author of Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice, and the host of the global Top 1% podcast, Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite, and the podcast Alpha Whisperers Genesis. Her mission is to transform executives into confident, inspiring leaders. A cognitive linguist by background, she has trained and coached executives at Fortune 500 companies and nonprofit leaders from around the world. And I think most excitingly, Laura's TEDx talk, Want to Sound Like a Leader? Start by Saying Your Name Right, has nearly 7 million views. That is so impressive, Laura. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. So I just want to start with the idea that you've helped so many people find their leadership voice, and authors, they also want to be leaders and thought leaders. So why is it so important for them to find that true voice?
It's interesting when you think about voice and authorship, because there's the author's voice of sorts, which of course is your style of writing, your point of view, etc. But eventually that has to translate to what comes out of our mouths, because you want people to ask you about your book, right? You want to be asked to come onto podcasts like this one and talk about it. You want to be invited to conferences. You want to be speaking at bookstores or on webinars or wherever it is for your expertise. So it's not enough just to be able to go from brain to pen or to keyboard. We really do have to find our ability to translate our thoughts, our passion, our expertise in a way that's going to be relatable, be digestible, be comprehensible to anybody else, or whoever is ideally your target audience. But more importantly, beyond that, because you want to have more influence on more people to bring them over to your space.
Yes, exactly. Because, I work with nonfiction, and why they're writing a book is they want to transform people.
Yes.
They want to make change. They want to be change makers in the world, right?
Yes.
And so when there's this gap between what we think we're saying and what other people are receiving,
yes,
that just shuts down the impact that we can make. So how does this idea apply to authors struggling to express themselves?
It's very much like, I'm guessing that most of your audience, most of the writers out there have done some workshopping at some point. You take a chapter or an excerpt and you share it with someone and you ask for feedback, whether they're your significant other or asking a mentor or a colleague or people with different degrees of connection to your topic or to the top, whatever you're writing about, expertise in the space. So the ability to have the humility to listen, to receive the input, because we're all in love with our topics, right? We want to make the difference, but we want people to read our stuff and go, oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's all clear now. And that doesn't always happen. So it's really important to ask good questions, not just, so what do you think? That's too broad. Ask a good focused question and then sit back, take a deep breath and receive whatever they say. And I find that the narrower we can ask a question, the more specific, actionable, and easy to receive is
Yeah.
the nature of the content that we will get. So the difference between what do you think about this versus the section in here, was the analogy effective? Was there a way, did I miss any details? Was it too detailed? Like, help them analyze and give you meaningful feedback, because people are afraid to tell you that they think something isn't good, or that, and that's too broad of a comment anyway, but they're not afraid to tell you like a very specific piece of information that you have asked for. That's different from levying a general opinion. Most people won't do it.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And what I find is, as humans, we're pulled in two directions. One, we want reassurance that we're okay. We want
Yes.
validation that our
Yes.
ideas are good. We want
Yes.
all of this. And yet we also want that honest feedback so we can improve ourselves, right? And so
Right.
it can be really challenging to, let go of that ego, or
Yep.
let go of that need for reassurance, and become vulnerable in
Yes.
order to get the feedback. And I love that you say, ask really specific questions. And I think that really works whether you're creating a course, whether you're developing a talk for stage, or whether you're about to send your book to beta readers.
Right.
Right. And so, okay, so when you're trying to be vulnerable, when you're trying to ask these really specific questions and it gets really scary and you become frustrated and you want to kind of run back to reassurance and validation and hide, how can we reset ourselves?
I think it's important to take stock of explicitly have a little sort of out of body experience where you can imagine your brain floating, or your mind floating up outside of your brain, and you're looking outside of it into yourself and saying, okay, what am I really feeling here? Ask yourself and name the emotion. What am I feeling and why? Well, I'm feeling defensive. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling under time pressure. Oh my gosh, they're telling me I got to fix this and tomorrow's my deadline. Well, maybe you shouldn't have waited till the day before to ask for the feedback, but that's a separate issue. But why am I hearing my father's voice in my head and it's not my father? And I shouldn't project my father onto this person. Or I love you, dad. It has nothing to do with my father, but hypothetically, so, but taking stock and saying, all right, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? Am I feeling a tightness in my throat? Am I feeling my heart kick in? Am I feeling a knot in my stomach? Am I feeling my legs start to bounce a little bit? I'm tapping my foot. What's going on? Okay, where is it coming from and why? Acknowledge it and then say, okay, I need to put that aside. What's this person's intention? What did I ask for? And how can I approach with gratitude to this person, making themselves vulnerable by asking the question, by answering the question that I have asked? How do I receive that graciously and humbly? And if you can redirect that, remind yourself they're not saying they don't like me, they're not saying this book's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Don't overgeneralize, and then it helps you to sort of bring down the adrenaline and redirect.
Yeah. I really love how you talk about recognizing the other person's vulnerability. We often see our own vulnerability and we think everyone else around us has no vulnerabilities. It's just me. So really thank you for talking about, recognizing that in that communication we're both vulnerable. I think
Yes.
that's incredibly powerful. Okay, so if you want to learn more about Laura, you can go to her website, Laura Sicola, at no, not at your email address. What was I thinking? Laura Sicola at .com. So I really want to get into the meat of what you do.
Mhm.
This is leadership presence, right? This
Yes.
you're bringing the best of our leadership. And you were talking earlier about the 3 C's of leadership presence. Can you
Yes.
just go over those again for our audience?
Absolutely. And they are 100% as relevant for authors as for corporate executives, which is typically my client demographic for training and coaching. But the 3 C's are very simply the ability to command the room, to connect with the audience, and close the deal. So if we break those down real quick, commanding the room means from the very beginning, something about the way you walk in, something about the way that you appear when you first log into a meeting and turn on your camera, do you turn your camera on, or are you hiding in the dark? So where, when you show up, is there something that that compels the other people to sit up and take notice, to focus, to pay attention? It's not that you're walking in there and saying, "Hey, look at me, extrovert, extrovert, attention hog, attention hog. No, it's all about me." But there's something, it can be a very quiet presence, but having that energy that just compels people. There's a difference between demanding respect and commanding it. And if you can command it with your presence, you will never have to demand it verbally. So that's the first one. That's command. The second C is connecting with the audience. And of course, both of these are just as important in your writing, right? You have to capture their attention right away with something powerful. And then no matter how different your world is from the person you're writing to, I mean, I could be reading about a surf in ancient China or whatever it happens to be, probably not in a nonfiction book, but nevertheless, I need to be able to empathize or to imagine or to picture myself there on some level. When you're speaking, you want to be able to establish at least one point of connection where you and the audience are both thinking on that particular level, you understand me and I understand you. If nothing else, on this one thread, we're going to go on this journey together. And then number 3 is closing the deal. And this does not have to mean a sales moment, signing on the dotted line. We like those. We're not going to say no to those. But more broadly, it's about, when you're driving the point home, do you come to an agreement together? Do we both have a mutual understanding? Are we moving the needle forward one step at a time, one conversation at a time, one page at a time? Are we going to continue forward? So that's the closing the deal part. And if you can consistently, cyclically do all 3 of those, that's where your leadership presence, that mastery comes through, and people want to follow that leader.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's excellent. But it really, it's this beautiful segue into my next question, which is about imposter syndrome. Because I can imagine people are out there listening to you, and as they're listening, half of them are saying, "Oh, I'd love that. That would be wonderful. That's what I want." And the other half is saying, "Who are you to expect that you could have that?" So can you talk a little bit about, as you go through this journey of finding your leadership self, when imposter syndrome comes up, how can we deal with that inner critic?
Sure. And of course, to anybody out there who is not familiar with the term imposter syndrome directly, you mentioned inner critic. That's very much one of the components of it. I think the simple definition of imposter syndrome is the fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, who am I to write this? Somebody's going to look at me and say, "Laura, who are you to write about X? What do you know? You're an executive coach, but yet you were never in the executive ranks. Who are you to do these kinds of things?" Right. But I have this lens, and those out there who need my lens aren't going to get it from anybody else. And there is that niche. I'm not the coach for everybody, but for this group, we click. And so I think I have what I like to call my 4-word secret to confident public speaking. And I think you can apply this to writing just as well. And those 4 words, Melody, are very simply, it's not about you. It may be your story that you're sharing. It may be some of your experiences you're sharing, but it's because, and I think this is one, we'll go back to number 2, connecting with the audience. I'm going to guess that this is a uniting principle for everybody out there who's listening, who's tuning in today, but we're all doing it because we want to make a difference. We have some experience, some knowledge, something that we feel compelled to share with the world to help people. So if we're focusing on speaking, on writing with that North Star, I want to help people, I know this is going to help someone, then that is your truth. And there is no one who can challenge that. That is not imposter. That's you. That's not fraud. Your experience is your experience. So if you just lead with that, and look, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like your stuff. There's going to be somebody who disagrees. What's Taylor Swift's line? The haters are going to hate, whatever. So, And look, you mentioned my TED Talk, which has done very well. But if you read the comments, some people are just mean. They don't like my shirt. They don't like the way I quoted Darth Vader at one point. They don't like, I mean, people have nothing to do. Some people have nothing to do and no way to feel better about themselves unless they're just tearing somebody else down.
Yeah.
It's the crab pot theory. Have you heard the crab pot theory?
Yeah. Go ahead. Don't leave us with, have you heard about it without explaining, Laura?
Okay. So
do it.
the 15-second version is if you've ever gone crabbing or you see a bucket of crabs at a fishmonger or something, every now and then one crab will manage to like grip the top of the bucket and try to pull itself out. And the ones that are below it will reach up and grab the legs and pull it back in. So when you think about that circle of people around you who are the naysayers, the ones going, you'll never write a book. I don't know. Who do you think you are? You're not an author. You're not special. You're not this and that. It's because they don't believe they are. They don't believe they have the capability. And to see you rise and succeed will make them feel underachieving or less than. So they need to pull you back down to their level so they feel better about themselves. That's how I have to look at the people who don't like my TED Talk, the people who disagree with this and that. They're going to have their opinions. And you know what? That's okay. Those are not the people I seek to serve. Those who I seek to serve are the ones who are right there with me and saying, thank you for doing all that you did to bring this to us. And it's the same for everybody else out there. You will have your contributors who will say, thank you for your contribution.
Exactly. Beautiful. And I just want to stop for a moment and say that go check out Speaking to Influence, the book. I've put the link right in front of you right now because everything we're talking about and more is there for you. Okay, as we're wrapping up, I want to talk about perfectionism because I think that imposter syndrome and perfectionism are the evil twin sisters, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And so is there a specific question you wanted me to answer or just to address the concept?
No, I want to address because I'm not going to ask you a specific question because they're so linked. I just want to give you the opportunity to kind of deal with them together or move on to perfectionism. So you're the expert.
Sure.
Please just give us what we need, Laura.
Okay. Well, I'm the expert only insofar as having experienced it.
Yes.
You know, if experience is expertise, then sure, I can speak from there. And perfection is the enemy of the done, frankly. And that's something that I learned 15 years ago when I was working on my PhD, because you can sit there and edit and always read another article and always add this and always add that and always feel like it'll never be good enough. At some point, you have to be done. In 2 years, write a second edition or write a follow-up book or do something else. But there is no such thing as perfection. And if you find you're erasing more than you're writing because it's not perfect yet, you'll never get off of page 1. Just get the ideas down and keep working through it. I think there's a lot of people, Melody, we talked a little bit before the show. I do a lot of public speaking coaching for my clients, and people tend to gravitate to one extreme or the other. Either they want to script it out and memorize it so it's perfect, so there's no question, there's no risk involved. They just hope nobody asks a question or interrupts them because then they're screwed if they get off track. Or they're like, I can't memorize. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to be authentic. I want to be free. I want to be me. But authentic and free and me don't mean sloppy and unprepared and completely off the cuff. You can do preparation and still move forward. So I think it's about finding a level, deciding for you what is going to be enough. Not too much, not too little. There's a time and a place for extemporaneous, and there's a time and a place for really tightly structured. You have to post something on LinkedIn, you got 300 characters, you got to be tight on that. Or the back of your book, you only have a few, 50 words, 100 words, has to be tight. But all things considered, just get stuff down. You can refine later. Don't worry about perfect. I think that's the key.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that perspective. Really appreciate it. One of the things we like to do is, as we end, is give our audience some actionable items, because it's really lovely to just sit and listen to a podcast and then wander off feeling good about it. But it's another thing to have, 3, I can do this now. Here's something I can actually implement.
Sure.
Could you give our authors 3 things that they can walk away with and actually do?
The first one, and this can go with writing, but also with anything else, time blocking. You have to block your calendar, whether it's from 4 to 5 in the morning, 4 to 5 in the afternoon, a 3-hour block, a 20-minute block. If there's something that you need to do, you have to schedule the time. Now, you should also honor the time. I am the queen of blocking time to do certain tasks, and then stuff can tend to eat into it.
Yes.
But even if 50% of my time blocks are honored, that's a whole lot better than none. So get the time blocks on the calendar, especially for, and so here's where number 2, when you know, and I'm also the queen, as you've just outlined, of things like going to a seminar or to a workshop or to a training or listening to a podcast and taking truckloads of notes and then not doing anything with them. They don't translate out. It's like, okay, right, there were a lot of action steps I was supposed to do along those lines. So if I know that one of those events is coming up, proactively, preemptively, I will then set a block of time on my calendar or 2 to just go through those notes as soon as possible when it's done, the next day or later the same day, and just see where I've highlighted. I always use 2, and so maybe this is my third one, but I always use 2 highlighting colors when I'm taking notes on something. Oh, look at that, I got balloons. I'm not sure where that came from, but so I highlight in yellow something that's an important point for me to remember, just, okay, food for thought, useful, and green are action items. So when I'm looking through, if I'm in a workshop for a day or a 4-day or something super intensive, there's a lot of takeaways after that. I don't want to go through 20 pages of notes line by line. I want to be able to find all of my green line items and then condense those onto a one sheet or put those right on the calendar or into an email or something else. Take action step with the green items. So then at least you can get rid of that notebook and move forward and know that it doesn't just stay as passive knowledge without effect.
I love that. One thing I tend to do is if I'm having a meeting with someone or I'm going to an event, I don't just block that time, I block that time plus.
Yes,
In
exactly.
fact, it's set up in my calendar to automatically say, okay, you're doing this, and then you have time afterwards because I want to write a note. I want to write a follow-up email. I want to do all these things to be this, the person I want to be. And if I don't time block that, it doesn't happen. And then later I feel badly because I didn't send the thank you email and I didn't follow up. And then, what's the point of that? So thank you, Laura, for all of this. This has been really brilliant. Where can we find you? And can we get a couple of chapters? I think you told me earlier that you have a couple of chapters people can read. So can you talk about where we can find that?
Absolutely. As you mentioned earlier, you can just find out more about me at my website, which is laurasicola.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you do reach out to connect, tell me that you met me here on Melody's show. I love knowing where connection requests come from, and that definitely makes me want to say yes. But you can also go to speakingtoinfluence.com. That's the website for my book and my podcast. And I think we've got a QR code up here that you can scan if you're looking at the video. Otherwise, I believe, Melody, you said you would put it in the show notes.
Yes.
But I have a link that will offer you 2 free chapters, the first 2 chapters of my book, of Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. So if you enjoyed some of the tips that I shared today, we've got lots and lots more where they came from, lots of stories, personal anecdotes, personal and professional spaces. I would love to hear any feedback that you have to offer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. I've really appreciated having you on the show today.
It was such a joy. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for joining us today at Author Nation. I hope this conversation has sparked interest, cleared some creative cobwebs, and have given you some real steps to reclaim your voice, write with conviction, speak as a leader. Now, don't forget to visit authornation.online for tools and guidance to support your nonfiction author journey, no matter where you are. And if this episode has brought you value, I'd love for you to review it, share it with that author you know needs to hear it, or reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. And remember, keep writing, keep showing up, and own your voice because the world needs your story.